There comes a moment in every child's life when childhood quietly begins to give way to something new. For me, that moment came the morning I walked through the doors of Holy Family Academy. I was 14 years old. To everyone else, I probably looked like an ordinary freshman wearing a brand new royal blue uniform. My 3-button blazer fit perfectly. My white blouse was crisp. My knee-high socks and penny loafers were polished for the first day of school. I carried my books against my chest, excited to see what high school would be like. I felt confident. People in my neighborhood already knew me as the little girl who could play shaft on the guitar. And even though life had not always been easy, I believed something better was waiting ahead. Somehow, I had to believe that. What I didn't know was that my journey to Holy Family Academy had started long before I ever put on that uniform. I didn't know another school had turned us away because our parents were receiving welfare. I didn't know the adults at St. Joseph Church refused to accept that answer. I didn't know they had come together to create scholarships so 10 of us could have an opportunity that our families could never have afforded on their own. At 14 years old, I thought I was simply walking into high school. Looking back now, I realize I was walking into a future that my family, my church, and my community had quietly built together. And perhaps that is the first lesson I truly learned about freedom. No one reaches it alone. There were only 10 of us, 10 young black girls from St. Joseph Church, each given an opportunity we didn't yet understand. The day we were fitted for our uniforms felt exciting. We laughed as the seamstresses measured our royal blue blazers, matched our skirts, and made sure our white blouses fit perfectly. We polished our penny loafers and couldn't wait for the first day of school. To us, they were just uniforms. We had no idea they represented the faith our church had placed in us. Walking into Holy Family Academy, I suddenly found myself in a much larger world. We were the only black students in the school, surrounded by young women from many different cultures and backgrounds. The teachers expected discipline, hard work, and excellence. Before we go any farther, if you're enjoying these stories, please subscribe and click the like button. It helps YouTube share these forgotten stories with more people. Now, I'd like to hear from you. Did a teacher, church, neighbor, or family member open a door that changed your life? Tell us in the comments, because your story matters too. I didn't know it then, but I wasn't just starting high school. I was beginning to understand what it truly meant to stand together. As an adult, I finally understood something that the 14-year-old girl in the royal blue uniform could never have known. Our family's struggle did not begin with my mother. It did not begin with my grandmother. It had been building for generations. There was a time in this country when teaching an enslaved person to read could be against the law in many places. Freedom finally came, but freedom did not erase generations of lost opportunities overnight. Families who had been denied education, denied the chance to build wealth, and denied equal opportunities were expected to somehow catch up in a single lifetime. Most couldn't. By the time I was growing up in Chicago, some families were planning for college. Our family was planning for tomorrow. Sometimes the question wasn't how to pay tuition. It was how to make it through another week. That is why St. Joseph Church mattered. They didn't see 10 poor black girls. They saw 10 young lives with unlimited potential. They refused to let our circumstances become our destiny. A child should never have to beg for an education. And yet, if that church had not stood together, I may never have walked through the doors of Holy Family Academy. The more I look back on my childhood, the more I realize that standing together wasn't something my family talked about. It was simply the way they lived. My mother's youngest brother was named Robert, but everyone called him Baby Brother. To us children, it sounded more like Babra. Whenever he came to visit, he rarely came alone. My cousins would pile in with him, filling our apartment with laughter, stories, and the kind of noise that only family can make. As a little girl, I thought he had simply come to spend time with us. Years later, my mother told me something I never knew. Every time Uncle Robert came by, he quietly helped pay some of our bills. If money was especially tight, he would leave extra cash behind before he went home. He never made a speech about it. He never asked for recognition. He simply saw a need and helped carry the burden. As a child, I never noticed. As an adult, I finally understood. Love isn't always spoken out loud. Sometimes love is an envelope left on the table, a bill that's somehow paid, or a brother quietly making sure his sister's children have another chance tomorrow. My Uncle Robert wasn't the only person who quietly carried the weight of someone else's burden. That was simply the way my mother's family lived. As children, we didn't know every problem the adults were facing. They made sure of that. We weren't included in every conversation. And there were parts of our family history they believed we were too young to understand. But we always knew one thing. Whenever someone in the family needed help, people came. When there was a death in the family, no one asked, who was going to pay for this? The family came together. Everyone carried part of the responsibility so that no one had to carry it alone. Looking back now, I realize they weren't just paying funeral expenses. They were protecting each other's dignity. They understood that grief was already heavy enough. No family should have to face that burden by themselves, the same spirit that helped bury the dead, helped feed the living, helped children stay in school, helped mothers keep the lights on, helped fathers find another day's work. It wasn't called mutual aid. It wasn't part of a government program. To us, it was simply family. And without realizing it, those quiet acts of kindness were teaching me one of the greatest lessons of my life. Freedom survives when people refuse to let one another stand alone. When I think about the people who stood together, I always come back to my mother. She didn't have much. There were days when simply getting through the week took everything she had. But somehow, she never stopped believing that tomorrow could be better than today. She accepted help when it was needed, but she never stopped trying to build a better life for her children. Looking back, I understand how much courage that took. There is strength in working hard, but there is also strength in allowing people who love you to help carry the load. That was never weakness. It was trust. It was family. It was community. My mother taught me something without ever sitting me down for a lesson. She showed me that accepting help today didn't mean giving up on tomorrow. It meant surviving long enough to reach it. That lesson stayed with me. Years later, when I became a single mother raising 2 children in California, I understood my mother's strength in a way I never could as a child. I knew what it felt like to work long hours. I knew what it felt like to worry about the future. And I knew how much one caring person could change another person's life. Perhaps that's why I have never forgotten the people who reached back and lifted me, because one day I would spend my own life reaching back and lifting others. As life moved forward, I carried those lessons with me all the way from Chicago to California. By then, I was raising 2 children on my own. I attended Los Angeles Southwest College while working as a nursing assistant in hospitals throughout Los Angeles. Life was busy. Some days I went from work to school, from school to my children, and then back to work again. It wasn't easy. But I had watched my mother keep going when life was difficult. I had watched my family stand together. I had watched my church open doors that seemed impossible to open. Those lessons had become part of me. Then one day, I walked into Morningside Hospital in South Central Los Angeles. I had never seen anything like it. For the first time in my life, I worked in a hospital where I saw Black excellence everywhere I looked. Black physicians, Black nurses, Black X-ray technicians, Black supervisors, Black professionals serving their community with confidence, compassion, and pride. I fell in love with that hospital. If they asked me to work a double shift, I said yes. If they needed me for a triple shift, I stayed. Not because I had to, because I loved being part of something that made me believe anything was possible. Among all the people I met at Morningside Hospital, there was one physician who changed my life in ways I didn't fully appreciate until years later. He was about 20 years older than I was. To everyone else, he was an experienced doctor. To me, he became a teacher. He never made me feel like I was just a nursing assistant. Instead, he treated every question I asked as if it mattered. When there was something I didn't understand, he explained it. When there was an opportunity to learn, he included me. Day after day, patient after patient, he taught me lessons that no textbook could ever teach. He taught me to pay attention, to listen before speaking, to look beyond the chart and see the person lying in the hospital bed. He showed me that great healthcare isn't built only on knowledge. It's built on compassion. Looking back now, I realize he was doing much more than teaching medicine. He was helping shape the kind of nurse I would one day become. Years before, a church had opened the door to my education. Now another person was opening the door to my profession. Once again, someone believed in me before I fully believed in myself. Working at Morningside Hospital changed more than my skills. It changed the way I saw myself. For the first time, I wasn't just dreaming about becoming a nurse. I could actually see it. Every day, I watched dedicated professionals care for patients with knowledge, confidence, and compassion. They carried themselves with dignity, and they expected the very best from everyone around them. Instead of feeling intimidated, I felt inspired. The doctor who had taken me under his wing never treated me like my future had already been decided. He encouraged me to keep learning, to keep asking questions, and to never stop growing. That confidence was contagious. The little girl who once wondered if she would ever have the chance to attend high school was now beginning to believe she could build a career helping others. Looking back, I can see the pattern. A church believed in me. My family believed in me. A teacher believed in me. And now a physician believed in me. Every stage of my life was touched by someone willing to lift another person higher. That is what standing together looks like. It isn't always loud. Sometimes it changes a life, one conversation, one lesson, and one act of kindness at a time. One of the greatest lessons I learned at Morningside Hospital didn't come during a lecture. It came during a shift in the emergency room. Friday and Saturday nights were often the busiest. Gunshot wounds, serious injuries, and medical emergencies could arrive one after another. When the emergency room became overwhelmed, everyone who could help was called. Titles mattered less than patients. We simply went to work. Because I worked throughout the hospital, I often saw those same patients again in the ICU, the definitive observation unit, and later on the medical floor. But there was one little lady I never forgot. She came through our emergency room almost every month. Each time she arrived unconscious and struggling to breathe, the routine was always the same. Oxygen, the ICU, the dough. Then eventually, she was well enough to go home. One day, I finally asked her a question that had been on my mind for months. Why does this keep happening? She looked at me with a smile I'll never forget. Then she quietly began telling me her story. As I walked the halls of Morningside Hospital, I began to understand something that had followed me my entire life. No one succeeds alone. Every opportunity I had received had been placed in my hands by someone who cared enough to open a door. St. Joseph Church opened the door to my education. My family opened the door to hope. My teachers opened the door to learning. The physicians and nurses at Morningside Hospital opened the door to a profession I would grow to love. Each person carried me a little farther. And without realizing it, they were teaching me something much greater than nursing. They were teaching me responsibility. One day it would become my turn. One day a frightened patient would look to me for comfort. One day a new nursing assistant would need encouragement. One day a young student would wonder if they were capable of becoming more than their circumstances. When that day came, I wanted to become the kind of person others had been for me. Someone who listened, someone who encouraged, someone who believed in people before they believed in themselves. That is how communities survive. One life reaches back, lifts another, and together they build a future that no one could have built alone. Years have passed since those days at Morningside Hospital, but the lessons never left me. As I look back over my life, I can trace every important turning point to someone who believed in another human being. None of those people became famous. Most of them will never appear in a history book. But history was written every time they chose kindness instead of indifference. Every time someone opened a door, history changed. Every time someone shared what they knew, history changed. Every time someone believed a young black girl deserved an opportunity, history changed. When I was growing up, I thought history was something that happened in Washington, D.C., or in the pages of a textbook. Now I know better. History also happens in kitchens where families share their last meal. It happens in churches where people quietly collect money to help a child stay in school. It happens in hospitals where experienced professionals take time to teach someone just beginning their journey. That is the history I lived. It may never make the front page of a newspaper, but without those ordinary people, there would be no extraordinary story for me to tell. As I grew older, I stopped asking one question and started asking another. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? I began asking, who made this possible? The answers were everywhere. a church that refused to give up on 10 young girls, a mother who never stopped believing tomorrow could be better, an uncle who quietly paid bills without expecting thanks, teachers who challenged me to do my best, doctors and nurses who took time to teach someone just beginning her journey. None of them knew how their kindness would ripple through the years. They couldn't see the future. They simply did what they believed was right. That is how history is really made, not only by great leaders, but by ordinary people making extraordinary choices, one life at a time. When I look back today, I don't remember every lesson from every classroom, but I remember the people. I remember how they made me feel. I remember that they believed my future mattered. Perhaps that's why I've spent so much of my own life teaching, nursing, and now telling these stories. Because someone once believed in a little black girl from Chicago, and I have never forgotten. As I have grown older, one truth has become clearer with every passing year. No one reaches their destination alone. When I was a little girl, I thought success belonged to the strongest people. Now I know it often belongs to the people who were loved, encouraged, and lifted when they needed it most. Looking back across my life, I can still see those hands reaching toward me. Some belong to family, some belong to teachers, some belong to a church, some belong to doctors and nurses. Each one helped me take another step, and without realizing it, they were preparing me for the day when someone else would need my hand. That is the true meaning of standing together. It isn't waiting until everything is perfect. It isn't helping only when it is convenient. It is choosing to believe that another person's future is worth your time, your effort, and your compassion. I have spent my life trying to honor the people who did that for me. Perhaps that is why I continue telling these stories today. Because every generation deserves to know that hope is passed from one heart to another, one person, one family, one community at a time. Do you remember that little old lady I told you about earlier? The one who came through the emergency room almost every month? The one we rushed from the emergency room to the intensive care unit, then to the definitive observation unit, before she was finally well enough to go home? Well, the very next month, she came back again. This time, I wasn't going to let her leave without asking the question that had been on my mind for months. I walked over to her bedside, smiled, and quietly asked, "Can I ask you something?" She smiled back and said, "Of course." I asked, "Why do you keep coming back?" She looked at me for a moment, then quietly began telling me a story I have never forgotten. "Every month when my Social Security check comes," she said, "my children take all of my money. They leave me just enough to buy my chewing tobacco." She explained that she would chew enough tobacco until she became unconscious. Someone would call an ambulance, and before long, she would find herself right back at Morningside Hospital. I looked at her and asked, "But why would you do that?" She smiled, a smile I'll never forget. Then she said, "Because while I'm here, they can't spend my money in front of me." She paused for a moment before continuing, "They can't get drunk around me either." Then she slowly looked around the emergency room. She smiled again. "The people here at Morningside are so good to me. They treat me with kindness." Then she added something that touched my heart. "Most of the people taking care of me look like me. That makes me feel comfortable. I feel like I'm with my own people." Then she reached over, gently touched my hand, and said something that has stayed with me ever since. "Every month, I plan to come back and see all of you." I stood there, speechless. For the first time, I realized I wasn't just looking at a patient, I was looking at a woman who had found the only place where she felt safe. I stood there for a long moment, thinking about everything she had just told me. Until then, I thought we were treating a medical emergency. But that little old lady helped me understand there was something much deeper going on. She wasn't just looking for medicine. She was looking for safety. She was looking for kindness. She was looking for dignity. She was looking for a place where someone knew her name and truly cared whether she lived or died. That conversation stayed with me. A few days later, I shared her story with one of the emergency room doctors. He listened without saying a word until I finished. Then he looked at me and said something I have never forgotten. "Rondia, never forget this. We don't just treat illnesses." He paused. Then he said, "We treat people." And sometimes the greatest pain a person carries isn't something you'll ever see on an X-ray, a lab report, or a heart monitor. Those words stayed with me throughout my nursing career. From that day forward, I tried to remember that every patient who came through those emergency room doors carried a story that deserved to be heard before it was ever treated. One lesson led to another. That little old lady wasn't the only patient who changed my life. There was another patient I'll never forget. He was only about 13, maybe 14 years old. It was a Friday night when he came through the emergency room doors with a gunshot wound to the chest. When someone arrived with a gunshot wound, the hospital immediately took extra precautions. There would be a police report. For the patient's protection, we often used a different name in the hospital records while they were admitted. It helped protect their identity if someone came looking for them. The trauma team worked quickly to save his life. Once he was stable enough, he was transferred to the intensive care unit. Several days later, he came to the definitive observation unit where I was working. He still had 2 chest tubes helping his collapsed lung expand again. One morning, the doctor asked me to assist him in removing those tubes. As I looked at that young boy lying in the bed, I didn't see a police report. I didn't see a gunshot wound. I saw a frightened child, someone's son, someone's future. Then, just before the doctor began the procedure, he quietly leaned over to me and gave me one last instruction, one I never expected. He said, "When I pull those chest tubes out, I want you to give him a quick smack on his backside." I remember looking at the doctor and thinking, did I hear him right? He simply smiled and nodded as if to say, "Trust me." The young boy was lying there quietly. You could see the fear in his eyes. He wasn't trying to act tough anymore. He was just a frightened 13-year-old who knew removing those chest tubes was going to hurt. The doctor spoke calmly to him the entire time, explaining what he was about to do. Then, on the count of 3, he quickly removed the tubes. At that exact moment, I did exactly what the doctor had told me to do. I gave him a quick smack on his backside. For just a split second, his attention shifted. The procedure was over almost before he realized it. The doctor looked over at me and smiled. That's when I understood what he had been teaching me. Sometimes taking care of a patient isn't just about knowing the right medical procedure. It's also about understanding the person lying in that bed. That young man needed more than a successful procedure. He needed people around him who understood he was scared. Even though I was only in my 20s, when he looked at me, he wasn't looking at my age. He was looking for someone who would help him get through one of the hardest moments of his young life. That lesson stayed with me for the rest of my nursing career. One afternoon, our team was gathered at the nurses' station, finishing paperwork. Back then, we practiced what was called team nursing. Each team consisted of one registered nurse, one licensed vocational nurse, and two nursing assistants. We depended on one another every single day. One of our patients had become frightened and confused while the LVN was trying to give her a treatment. Suddenly, the patient came out of her room and started chasing the LVN down the hallway. I looked up just in time to see the LVN running toward the nurse's station with the patient right behind her. The LVN wasn't running away from the patient. She was trying to get her to a place where the rest of the team could help. As the patient reached the nurse's station, she grabbed a stapler off the counter. Without frightening her, I quietly stood up and placed my hand over the stapler before she realized I had done it. Then I stepped in front of her, looked her in the eyes, and calmly asked, "Can I help you? What did she do to upset you? Whatever it is, I'll make sure she doesn't hurt you." Immediately, her attention shifted from the LVN to me. As we walked back to her room, she told me everything that was upsetting her. Because she was so confused, she wasn't even sure she was in a hospital. That day reminded me that sometimes the best way to protect a patient isn't with force. Sometimes it's with patience, a listening ear, and a calm voice. Working through the nursing registry gave me opportunities to work in hospitals all over Los Angeles. Because I had taken additional classes, I wasn't limited to one department. I could perform EKGs, draw blood, prepare patients for surgery, and assist wherever I was needed. One hospital I especially remember was Daniel Freeman Hospital. It was a Catholic hospital that had a reputation for treating many well-known people. Privacy was taken very seriously there, and so did we. Our responsibility wasn't to ask questions or collect autographs. Our responsibility was to care for our patients. Many mornings I reported to work around 1 or 2 o'clock to prepare patients for surgery. One of my jobs was shaving the surgical area before they were taken into the operating room. One morning, I walked into a patient's room to prepare him for knee surgery. The first thing I noticed was that both of his legs were hanging way over the end of the bed. Before I could say anything, he looked at me, smiled, and started joking that the hospital needed longer beds. At 2 o'clock in the morning, just hours before surgery, we were both laughing. Only later did I learn why the bed looked so short. He played for the Los Angeles Lakers. Even today, I won't tell you his name. He trusted us with his privacy, and I still believe every patient deserves that same respect, whether they're famous or not. I realized that little old lady wasn't the only person teaching me. Every patient who trusted me with their care, every nurse who took the time to teach me, every doctor who shared their knowledge, every respiratory therapist, every X-ray technician, every laboratory technician, every housekeeper who stopped to comfort a frightened patient, every unit secretary who kept the emergency room running, every nursing assistant who worked beside me during those long shifts. Each of them helped shape the nurse I became. People often thank doctors and nurses, and they should, but a hospital is much more than that. It is a team. Every person has a purpose. Every person matters. When one person is overwhelmed, someone else steps in. When one person grows tired, another carries the load. That is what I witnessed every day at Morningside Hospital. Standing together wasn't just something we talked about, it was something we lived. And looking back over my nursing career, I realized those men and women gave me gifts I could never repay. Not with money, not with awards, only with gratitude. So if any of you or your families ever crossed my path during those years, thank you. You helped shape my life more than you'll ever know. For the past 9 commandments, we've walked this journey together. We've talked about faith, family, education, ownership, justice, compassion, and standing together. Each generation carried something forward, so the next generation could go a little farther. But there is one final commandment, the one that ties them all together. Because freedom isn't something you win once, it's something every generation must protect. Next week, we'll finish this journey together. Commandment number 10, freedom is not negotiable. I'll see you then.